Let's maul in the Central Committee. Let's cringe in the Central Committee. Let's bog in the Central Committee right now.
Oh, okay. Francesca is here. Leftist production values.
I think we
We're all
crowdsourced
good.
what you
We're
should
good. We're
do.
good. No, we're good. We're good. We got it.
Oh,
We got
okay.
it.
I just thought we should listen to the chat and like
All right.
crowdsource.
So
Tech
we're all here, and I know you, Francesca, from your work on TYT and I guess Al Jazeera Plus, right?
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Can you tell me Can you tell my audience a little bit about your show and your experience, and kind of introduce yourself to the? We got 2,200 people here right now.
What's up, Twitch? Oh my God, happy Wednesday. Here we all are. So yeah, I'm a correspondent and comedian. I started on AJ Plus years ago. I've been a longtime activist, however, sort of skulking and pretending like I'm a journalist when really I just want, to bring about the rev. And yeah, I started a comedy news show on AJ Plus called News Broke. If you should definitely watch it, it's fun. It's like John Oliver, but with like a sixth of the support and staff.
Well, that's still a lot.
There's like 4 of us, but yeah, it's good. And now I have a podcast called The Bituation Room that streams every Sunday. If you guys need something to do, 6-9 Eastern, and it's good. It's like comedy and news. And
Do you do that on Twitch?
I do it on Twitch at Franny Fio. Just getting the plugs out of the way, Mike.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We're just gonna hit them up off the beginning because I believe in plugging early and often for other leftist content creators and get the communities to cross-pollinate as much as we can.
Thanks.
I invited you on here because I wanted to get your opinion on a couple like important stories with the left. You talked about wanting the revolution. Let me tell you, there is a revolution going on.
Is it happening? Are we
in
there
Nevada?
yet?
It's happening in Nevada.
Hell yeah.
A political revolution. Now, I'm sure you're aware, you saw that this week, and Chad, in case you missed it, we talked about this a bunch because I was very angry, but also it's experiences I've had in my own life. I was a political candidate. I've helped progressive politicians win here in Pennsylvania. And every single time, my biggest opposition was always the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. And when you win the primary, you think that's when it gets easier, but that in fact is when it gets harder because they walk around and they go to every labor union, every organization saying this is not a viable candidate. They're too far left. We're de-emphasizing their race. And you walk around getting like with 8 daggers in your back. So not only do you have to face the Republican Party, who has a tremendous amount of money, you have to face your own party. And in Nevada, to bring you into this conversation, the Democratic Socialist back slate just completely won control of the entire Democratic Party in Nevada. And what has happened is they took the outgoing centrist Reid machine from former Majority Leader Harry Reid, took $500,000, emptied the bank accounts of the Nevada Democratic Party. Every single staff member resigned, and we saw every consultant quit. And so it looks like they're planning on trying to create an outside of the party movement. Do you have any thoughts on this? Have you talked about it? And what do you think it means for progressives and Democratic Socialists going forward?
Good question. First of all, I got a leaf blower outside. My apologies.
It's okay. It's Twitch. Okay.
Welcome to Twitch. Strictly leaf blower content. I think you talk about a million daggers in your back. This is the Democratic Party in Nevada that said they were the unity party, right? The more centrist establishment, Harry Reid folks, and they bounced and moved almost $500,000 out of the coffers. Now, of course, that's going to the reelection of I think a senator a representative. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the point is,
it's Cortez Masto who's running for reelection for Senate in Nevada.
Yes.
Well, that's what they claimed. They just gave the money to the DSCC, which is the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, chat, in case you don't know. That is basically the campaign arm of Chuck Schumer and the Democratic Party. And they kind of spend the money where they want. And the Nevada Dems took the money out of their own party and said, we're giving it. But don't worry, it's coming back to Nevada for this candidate.
Yeah.
And
there'll be a lot less of it, but
yes. Well, there's a couple problems with that. First of all, people gave money to the Nevada Democratic Party, not the Cortez Masto campaign. So yes, she is a Democrat, but that's not what people gave. So they already are kind of embezzling and defrauding people who donated so that there would be grassroots Democratic Party building in their own state. And now that's being changed to support one candidate. And she needs to win. You know, the Dems don't want to lose the Senate, I guess. But they're doing this because they want the progressives who took over the party to fail. That is the goal. They want them to fall on their face. And that means Democrats lose, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like a little bit ass backwards if you want this Senate candidate to be reelected, to like basically you've got ambassadors for, yes, the Democratic Party. They're more progressive. So they might believe in Medicare for all and a Green New Deal, but they're still going to want the Democrat to win that Senate race over the Republican. So like these are your folks, and you could, this is a moment to be like, so are we in this together? You know, like you have a more of a grassroots connection, specifically with the Latino community in Nevada, as the Sanders campaign and a lot of the progressives and DSA folks in Nevada have. And instead of being like olive branch, let's work together on this, they were like, no, we want you to fail. And by the way, by killing your efforts, I'll probably kill my efforts because I won't, you know, create this grassroots support for this candidate that I want to get reelected.
One of the things that's really funny is earlier you mentioned the unity, the two slates, and the two slates was the progressive slate. That was their name. And the other slate was the Progressive Unity slate. Yeah. That was the centrist establishment slate. And the moment they lost, they immediately tried to destroy their Democratic Party apparatus on their way out, scorched earth. So it kind of shows you one of my larger theses, and a lot of people have a hard time handling this, is unity is a one-way street. Yeah. It's for progressives or socialists to do towards Democrats, but the moment that we win, it doesn't go that way.
No, and I gotta say, so I was on the ground a year ago for the Bernie campaign. I'm freelance. I wasn't working with anybody officially as a journalist. I was volunteering. And I actually volunteered in the Nevada primary at the caucus, one of the caucus sites, right? Which, if you live in a state that has that caucuses, it's insane. It is so confusing. And as someone who speaks Spanish, I was actually trying to do the translation work. I was working with Make the Road over there in Nevada, and was doing love Make the Road. And so I was doing translation work with, mind you, this is the middle of the week, with like mostly elderly Latino voters who didn't understand. There was no official translation, and we're like, I gotta go. Like it was a 6-hour process, right? And so one young woman was like, I've got kids and I have to go feed them. Sorry, I can't be around for your like caucus that lasts forever. What I'm saying is I got there and I was like, and this is my thesis about the Democratic Party. I do think sometimes that there's conniving, there's backstabbing. I also think there is so much ineptitude. So, like, they don't have the Nevada caucus process under control. They were losing voters, specifically Bernie Sanders voters, of course, which is like a little bit like, okay, it's a win, you know, if you wanted Pete Buttigieg to win the caucus or whomever.
Who finished second? I don't even remember in Nevada, chat. Do you guys remember who finished second?
I think it was Biden.
I think it was Biden as well, but he lost by like 35, 40 points, right?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was a blowout. It was a blowout win for Bernie. And that's, I really regret not going to Nevada. I went to California on Super Tuesday out from the East to help out, so at least I enjoyed that. But the rest of the night was bad for every other state, for the most part. One of the things that, the ineptitude is really interesting, because what I find so funny about these machines, and particularly the Harry Reid machine, is if the machine is so effective, like one of the narratives that's being spread by mainstream journalist Ralston, I think he's out there in Nevada, kind of the Nevada expert supposedly, is that this is the most competent Democratic Party in the country being destroyed. And I'm wondering, how are they the most competent if they're losing the caucus? Reid did not back Bernie Sanders. And how are they competent if they're losing the people that are the most dedicated to the Democratic Party? Can anyone square that circle? Can you?
Yeah, consultants are still getting paid to put out crappy polling and not connect with people and not knock on doors. Look, there's a whole machine, right? People got to eat. And by eat, I mean like bottom feed off of a very corrupt, sort of like beltway bro system. And that applies in every single state. And I think that the Bernie movement definitely burst that bubble. I think it's really important that this happened in a week also where the DCCC is now not banning consultants and from working with any primary challenger candidates, or right. So before there was this blacklist where if you had supported as a consultant or as a group a primary challenger to a Democratic incumbent, then you wouldn't get any money from the DCCC. That's ended, and that's huge. And that was only a couple of years ago, and we were like, well, we're fucked for forever. And I think they've proven that. I think the tides are turning. So as angry as I get as a progressive and a leftist for how much the Democratic establishment is both inept and also conniving, I think we're making progress. And I think we have to claim those victories, just like I think that, folks claim the victory in Nevada, even if it was they got $500,000 taken from them.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting, and we can transition to talking about the COVID bill and the $15 minimum wage after this, but one of the things I found interesting is the person who won this leadership position was a woman who was in charge of the Nevada, the Clark County Democratic Party, which is the largest county in Nevada, county that is which Las Vegas is situated. And they did the same thing to her at that local level. When she won on a reform slate, they dismantled it. They tried to make her fail. And what she said is it didn't matter. She got people engaged. She got more people and volunteers, more people that are passionate about the process. So this is just them playing the same playbook again and hoping she fails again. And the risk really is, as much as Democrats say they care about defeating Republicans, this is dismantling a Democratic Party in a swing state with a swing senatorial race in the midterms, and they don't give a shit. The more important thing is for them to defeat progressives. And so that brings me to the next topic. As we speak, it looks like the COVID-19 bill from the Senate version has passed the House. And one of the things that it was missing was the $15 minimum wage. What's your take on the whole $15 minimum wage fiasco? Do you think that the bill is still worth, celebrating? And what should we do going from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's once again, I think we good leftists love to critique stuff, and that's really important. But we often focus on the stuff that a bill doesn't have and not actually honestly talk about what it does have. And truth be told, this is a huge bill, $1.9 trillion, and it will make a difference in many people's lives. Not the biggest difference that we would have hoped, not the most universal, like a $15 minimum wage. But when you're talking about not the $2,000, but $1,400, not just for every adult, but every dependent, every person. Yeah. So guys, have them babies. Just, it pays. No, I'm kidding. No, but really, that's huge.
Well, that's another thing. Yeah, that's another thing. There is that child benefit as well, the child allowance. So it's
there's
$3,000
a child tax credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just not to jump on top of what you're saying too hard, but just to give an example to the chat, we did a calculation at a family of 4 with 2 kids that are, say, teenagers, is going to get, I think it was $11,000 cash from this. And that's a lot. That's a lot of money. Yeah. For most people. It's a lot of money for me.
It almost makes up for the fact that you've been quarantined with a child for a year.
See, almost. I wouldn't know. I don't think so. But I think I would have lost my mind. Yeah, okay, chat. Calm down about the sex havers always winning. All right? Just because you're in Twitch chat doesn't mean you need to... Yeah, exactly. They're always complaining. They're like, "What about me? I only get $1,400 and I'm lonely." No, that's not fair. You'll be okay. I'm still not adopting, even for $3,000.
But it is, more than the direct payments. It does, there's money for healthcare programs. There's money for, union, help making sure that people aren't losing their union benefits. Pensions, exactly. There's money for, I think there's money even for Black farmers.
Yep.
There is a lot that has been put into this bill. And I do think it is the kind of number that, in 2008, that Obama should have been actually floating in response to the financial collapse. Instead, and this is what I said on my podcast, just we always have these, a Republican ruins the country for however many years, gets us into $3 trillion wars. And then the Democrats are like, well, now we're just going to be middle of the road. It's no, we've got to do so much more. There's so many fires to put out. We need the money to actually put it out. And so it is breaking a little bit with the neoliberal don't spend, don't deficit spend kind of consensus of the Clintonite.
And Obama.
Obama being a Clintonite.
Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of people talk, I think you're making a really good point. And I kind of feel like this is it's a mixed bag, obviously, with the $15 minimum wage. I think that was a huge mistake that they made. However, you're right. Like, we have funding for state and local government, schools. We have vaccines, universal vaccinations. They have capped the amount of money that you can spend on health insurance premiums. I think it's 8.5% of your income max, which is going to be, for a lot of people, thousands of dollars a year. We have the child allowance, which brings us in line with a lot of the rest of the developed world, $3,000 per kid, and you get it paid monthly. That's a lot different than most of our programs. And so all those things are really positive. What do you think about the $15 minimum wage, bringing us back to that?
God.
And going forward, do you think it has a shot? What is your kind of read on the politics of it?
Yeah, I mean, what sucks is that it is all politics. I mean, interestingly, 8 Democrats voted against it when it was put up as an amendment by Bernie Sanders. I was talking to Emma Vigeland on my show the other day about, like, was that the right move? You essentially, not to trigger anybody, but you basically forced this vote on the minimum wage. I think if Bernie hadn't brought that amendment, I would have been pissed. I got to say, I would have been mad that we didn't even bring it up, even though politically 8 Democrats voted against it, some of whom have been for a minimum wage before, but because they're basically trying to protect the Biden administration and Kamala Harris for not overriding the Senate Parliamentarian, who wanted to exclude it from the bill, that, like, they just are trying to provide cover for the president, blah, 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 blah. And so by 8 votes, losing is kind of a big deal. So that's the, like, wonky politics. The moral of it is absolutely we need a $15 minimum wage. And I think even people from Pelosi to Pramila Jayapal are on board with this. So I think it's something that can get done, but you got to abolish the filibuster in the Senate if we're going to do it.
I think that's one of the things that is really interesting to me is, the House just passed the PRO Act a couple days ago, which was, or was it yesterday? Which was which is a very pro-union bill that organized labor has been pretty universally calling for, banning right-to-work legislation basically nationwide.
That's
making
amazing. That's great. Sorry, that's crazy.
Yeah. And making it much easier for people to organize into labor unions and all those other things. What do you think about, like, the PRO Act going forward and the filibuster in general? Like, for me, it keeps coming back to that. We're not going to do immigration reform. We're not going to do an infrastructure bill. We're not going to do climate change legislation. We're not going to do the PRO Act. We're not going to do the $15 minimum wage. We're not going to do any of the things that even Biden ran on. Where's the public option? There's no public option with a filibuster. So what do you think? Like, do you think the Dems are actually going to have the wherewithal to get rid of the filibuster or reform it in such a way that basically they can get votes on these things that are majoritarian, or are we screwed?
I think if you send Joe Manchin the right edible arrangement, he will acquiesce. And if you send Kristen Sinema just like a gift certificate to Hot Topic, like where she usually clearly likes to shop. No offense, Twitch. Look, you can only get concert t-shirts at Hot Topic and band shirts, but
there are a couple other places, but yeah.
There's a couple. Yeah. Anyway, the point is this, those fools are standing in the way. And what I was going to say, what's great about this is that we're all like, abolish the filibuster. It's so clear. And so, like, from, the most liberal centrist Democrat to, a leftist who believes in electoral politics, we can all come together and agree you have to abolish the filibuster. The problem is everyday Americans don't know what the F that is really. And like taking to the streets, and they don't care. And taking to the streets and being like, abolish the filibuster is like, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it's not sexy enough to rally around. Whereas but yet it is the sort of key. It is that puzzle piece that we really have to undo. So I'm like, strategically, I'm like, I don't know how you go forward in this fight from a movement level, from like a people pressure kind of level, other than calling reps, obviously.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a lot of really important things. Like, talking about abolishing the filibuster, like the Republicans already did it for Supreme Court judges. And that story lasted for approximately 2 days. And then nobody cared.
Right.
They put them on the court, they jammed them on there, and then it was like, that went right down the memory hole. So the idea that anybody cares about the filibuster is laughable. You know, I'm sure you're aware.
That's right. I remember that. I've put that into the like hurt place of my brain.
Yeah. They got rid of, like, they had a filibuster that, you know, that was allowed for Supreme Court nominees. That was kept. And it wasn't until they came in to fill Merrick Garland's seat that they just said, well, the Republicans said, well, fuck this, got rid of the filibuster, did the nuclear option, and put them in. And then, you know, people complained. And they also get rid of something known as blue slips. Now we're getting really nerdy, chat. Now we're in my specialty.
Oh, here we go.
A blue slip, basically no judge used to be able to be appointed unless their home state senators sent what was known as a blue slip, saying that guy's okay. So it didn't matter what party you were. It didn't matter if you were in the minority. You had veto over any judges going into your state. That was the blue slip process. And Republicans used it like crazy under the Democrats, and the Democrats respected it. And the moment Trump came in, they trashed the blue slip, they trashed the filibuster, and they just packed the court with hundreds of judges.
The blue slip was you can't wait. Sorry, can you explain it again? You can't vote me down. You can't. I'm good.
Okay, yeah. So a blue slip basically was
like a hall
a veto.
pass?
It was like a veto for or I can't remember if they sent it to approve it or if the blue slip was sent when they were denying it. But the point is, the blue slip said that a judge was not acceptable to that home state senator.
Okay.
And it sounds insane.
And everyone respected it.
Everybody respected it. Yes.
Got it.
It sounds
So
insane.
it's like, no, that does sound insane. That also doesn't sound great. But the fact that it was then, that was sort of the norm before, once again.
And nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
I think in order to abolish the filibuster, we'll see whether Manchin and Sinema. Oh God, I really don't have faith that Manchin will go along with it at all. And who knows, even if everyone got on board, you know, maybe there's a parliamentarian who come out like a cuckoo clock and just be like, can't do that. You know, like, I don't know. But I do feel like we have to flip more Senate seats. Democrat.
Okay, so this might be our point of
But you can't flip
contention.
them.
It's impossible.
You think it's impossible?
It's impossible to get to 60.
Yeah.
If you just look at the Senate, it's just not happening.
But
like,
Mike,
we're not
can't
going
you
to 60.
abolish the filibuster with a majority?
Yes.
Can't just simple majority, right?
Yeah. So you would need to flip senators who then said, I'm going to abolish the filibuster, and that would then happen. But you're basically going into 2022 with nothing but the COVID relief bill. And I want to be honest, chat. How many of you saw the Trump stimulus where he gave you $1,800? How many of you went, I'm voting for Trump now? He did that a year ago. He did that 9 months ago.
Your
I love
chat's
Trump.
smarter than that.
I love Trump. You know, that's what I don't understand about the strategy of, well, we did a big COVID relief bill 2 years ago. Vote for us again.
Yeah.
Because we need to get rid of the filibuster. And you're right. Like, smart people barely remember the filibuster being thrown in the trash for the Supreme Court nominees. No one remembers blue slip. Nobody remembers this arcane Senate procedure.
Remember the blue slip. Yes. No. Thank you for explaining it.
And then the other thing is, well, I'll ask you about this because it's related, which is the Parliamentarian. What do you think about this and what it portends for the future? Because, you know, if you want, I can explain it to the community, or you can
go ahead.
But basically, the Parliamentarian was created in 1935 to help, you know, the majority leader and different, you know, senators. They take the chair. They become the president of the Senate when the, you know, vice president isn't there. And they rule on procedural motions. And so they created the Parliamentarian to help them understand Robert's rules or whatever, the rules of the Senate, excuse me.
Right.
And the parliamentary rules, and kind of like help them make decisions. So it was created as a staffer.
Sure.
And they have that position at the whim of the majority leader. The majority leader could get rid of the parliamentarian at any point. And so we were talking about the Byrd rule. God, this is so arcane and stupid, and I already feel like so much of a nerd trying to explain it to people.
No, explain it because
like,
it's super interesting. Because once again, like the filibuster got very racist origins.
Yes, and what's really wild about I'm sorry because I don't want to monologue while you're a guest too much, but the point is
that's okay.
The parliamentarian went in and started to help make these rules. Now, the Byrd rule is something that was created in 1985, which means it is younger than me. Younger than me, chat.
Legacy.
1985, they created the Byrd rule, which basically said during reconciliation, you can't have extraneous items. What the hell does that mean? There's no like law that explains what that means. That's up to interpretation. Whose interpretation? Well, in the Budget Act, it says the chair of the Senate or the president of the Senate. Who is that? Kamala Harris. It doesn't say parliamentarian. It doesn't say some staffer. It is up to the chair to make a decision. Now, they get an advisory opinion from the parliamentarian, but that it's in no way binding. And what's really interesting is that the parliamentarian has been overruled recently. It was overruled in 2001 with the Bush tax cuts. They fired their parliamentarian, put a new one in, and nobody cared.
It's like when your therapist gives you like advice that you don't like, and you're like, thanks, I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, you can't
I don't like you anymore.
So what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about that?
It's just a suggestion. It is a suggestion. Correct me if I'm wrong, but how, when the Trump tax cuts were passed, also $1.9 trillion, they snuck in a bunch of crap about the ACA and because they couldn't roll back the ACA in any other way. They have yet to replace it, waiting for that one. And they snuck that into that, but that wasn't through budget reconciliation. They didn't have to consult their parliamentarian.
It was in budget reconciliation. Yeah. And that's why, if you know about the Trump tax cuts, in order to pass budget reconciliation, the bill has to be related to the budget, and it can't have a cost to the federal government beyond a time horizon of 10 years. So in order to do that, there were tax cuts in the Trump tax bill for the middle class and the working class. And those all expire at 10 years. But all the tax cuts for the rich and major corporations do not. So to give it the budget impact that you need to have, the budget number, they did that. So right now under the Trump tax cuts, after 10 years, all of us are going to get a tax increase, but all the corporations and stuff are going to keep it. That shows you the kind of
who was the parliamentarian then? Just like a little goblin that they found? I don't know, like some random dude who's wearing all Trump, like a unitard of just Trump faces. That was the parliamentarian, just wearing a beer helmet. Like, hell yeah, this guy. Anyway, the point is that it is, it was so stupid. It was not a good move on Kamala Harris's part, I don't think, to overrule. Like, why not overrule the parliamentarian? Why not just go all out? Also, because the other thing is that when you're trying to use, and look, I kind of disagree with you. I think that this stimulus bill, this rescue plan, will have ramifications into 2022, and it can win, more Democrats elections if they're actually crafting a narrative around it that says, look what we did, Republicans didn't vote for it. No Republican voted for this. Rather than didn't look how cute when we came together and passed it. No, you didn't. You didn't come together. One of you wanted everyone to die, and others wanted you to die a little less slowly, but hey. No, right. But so I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think that they need the narrative upper hand, and Kamala Harris really could have. $15 an hour minimum wage is a perfectly understandable talking point, platform, a valiant thing.
And highly popular.
And incredibly popular. You got Rachel Maddow, like, why aren't we doing this? It's like, when you've got MSNBC even being like, what the hell, why don't we have a $15 minimum wage? It tells you something about how popular it is, even though they all make hundreds of millions of dollars. But
I like to back you up on how popular it was. Like, there was a $15 minimum wage bill in the Florida referendums.
Yes.
And to make it a constitutional amendment in Florida, so they needed 60% of the vote, and they got it. The same time that Donald Trump was running, there was a significant percentage, around 10% of the electorate, were Trump $15 minimum wage voters. And when you think about that, and you're like, holy crap, we lost a significant portion of people that at least agree with us on the $15 minimum wage. It's that much more popular than Trump in Florida. How can the Dems not support this? It's not electoral. What is the reason that justifies a Joe Manchin or a Kirsten Sinema?
It's Christian. It's Christian Sinema.
Christian? Okay.
I love Christian Sinema.
Christian. I can't say her name.
No nudity, but great storyline.
Well, what do you think about? Well, talking about that, what did you make of the vote of the no vote from her on the $15 minimum wage?
Someone pointed this out to me that, like, she taps Mitch McConnell. This is Kirsten Sinema of Arizona. Taps Mitch McConnell almost as if to say, like, watch this, watch me do this, and then goes over and like puts her thumb down, but not only a thumb down, but a little bop, a little curtsy. I think people were saying
a little twist.
No.
Yeah, like, look how cute I am, making sure millions of people stay in poverty. Hee hee.
I'm sorry, like, I don't think it's right to focus on what anyone wears, but my God, you're a senator and you're wearing like a vinyl skirt with like weird stockings and you're carrying it kind of like
Did
you're
she
carrying
have
your
like
purse
big
on your
boots on too?
Yeah, it just like
Boots to
I
step on
don't
our heads as she
I mean, I don't love pantsuit, especially, as they came to represent Hillary Clinton, but
Wow,
put on a
how dare you
blazer.
analyzing her wardrobe.
Yeah,
Sexism.
I know.
You're falling right into their I mean, canceled. I can't believe it.
Of course, if she had voted for it, I would have been also like, that's amazing. Also, put on a blazer. No, but it
No,
was
I would have
very
been a total hypocrite. I would have said how cool she looked if she went up
Look
there.
at her. She's cool, mom.
Mhm.
No, she's gleeful in that, which was not okay. And then dared to put out a statement that's saying that anyone criticizing her was immediately sexist. Which yes, I just talked about her wardrobe, but it's not look, working people, the people who disproportionately benefit from what we're talking about are women and are women of color. And especially in the pandemic, the stats are insane about how many women have lost jobs in the pandemic, right? Like far outnumbering the number of men, the percentage of men
Yes.
and percentage of mothers. So in that sense, I am really happy that mothers and people who, who have to take care of kids are going to get a tax credit and are going to get, $1,400 for each kid they have. I don't know what we're going to do, and this is what I always tell people to remember, like the right, it's so easy when your party is Christian nationalist authoritarianism, minority rule. Like, it's easy. We just, oh my God, we always agree. We got laser focus, but when your goals are like multiracial, democracy and like economic justice, that's a lot more. You're putting a lot more on your plate there for better, but it's gonna, you're gonna have people, who come from, again, it's the big tent party. And I effing wish that we had more than two parties.
I think the one thing that I would say just to create some heat between us is that almost every single part of what we call the progressive platform, when polled, gets over 65% support. $15 minimum wage, single payer healthcare, Green New Deal, union rights. You go down the line and, you'll see big bipartisan majorities for each thing. The one interesting quirk is that you don't really find that many people that agree to all of those things. You know what I mean?
Right.
So people kind of like shift on each policy which one they support. There's only a small percentage of people that all support 65%. But you'll have somebody who supports a $15 minimum wage and supports a Green New Deal, but they don't support immigration reform.
Right.
And so, but there'll be someone who's against the $15 minimum wage and they do support immigration reform. So on each single policy, we have a big, broad consensus, just the entire package. And it's difficult to get, because voters are so idiosyncratic, to get people to be fully behind this huge progressive platform. And so you're right that we have a difficulty in forming a coalition. However, stuff like this, $15 minimum wage, economic populism, that unites a big swath of this country. And something like West Virginia, the home of Blair Mountain, the home of rednecks, the real rednecks. Originally, rednecks were people who were labor extremists. They were militant, pro-union workers. That's what they wore red bandanas around their necks. That's why they were called rednecks. Not because they had a truck and they had consensual relations with a cousin, okay? They were rednecks because they were out there.
Consensual. I love how you add that. No, consensual.
Yeah, that's the type of redneck that people think of. And so now we are facing a situation where we have somebody like Kirsten Sinema. Well, I'll never get her name right.
It's Christian Cinema. I don't care.
Well, in Arizona in particular, like they already have a $12 minimum wage right now. So the $15 minimum wage would not apply to her state until 2024.
Ridiculous. No, the other thing that I was going to say to you is that you mentioned Florida, right?
Yes.
And there was, and I don't remember her name, but there's a representative who won her district this time around, maybe also in 2018. And Florida lost House seat. And she was like, because we're running these middle of the road, but not just middle of the road, she said specifically, we're running
yeah.
candidates that aren't talking about economic populism or economic justice. And yet we're in a state that overwhelmingly passed a $15 minimum wage. Yes, there's delayed gratification on that one, which I have problems with, but like, you should harp on that. Be like, I'm the party that put this up. I'm on the side of the minimum wage. And there were too many Floridian like candidates, Democratic candidates, who didn't make that the center of their platform and lost. I mean, I think it's very specific for different places. I don't think you can sort of blanket, I don't think there's a universal strategy. Obviously, I think Kyrsten Sinema won because, I think she's been like tiptoeing around immigration more, right? And I think when you're in a border state, you have to, right? And you're trying to get some, Republican voters. Same thing with West Virginia. Maybe immigration and like racial justice are not necessarily the issues you're going to win on, but you also can't ignore them. And you also, especially as the South proved in Georgia, like these will be the backbone of your voters if you don't ignore these issues. And so I think it's like it's difficult because I don't think you have to be like, you don't have to only talk about, identity and race and such like that. But like, if you're not speaking also to like in Nevada, the Latino voters that came out for Bernie that are now, look, I don't know how many of them, people who are elected are Latino in terms of the Democratic Party's representatives right now. What is it called? The Assembly?
Which state was that again?
In Nevada, the one we were talking, the DSA folk.
Oh, we're talking about the Central Committee of the Democratic Party.
The Central Committee.
Yeah.
The Central Committee.
That's right.
But it's like, I don't know what, it's hard because Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin's basically like, I hit Dems and I hit Republicans. And that's why you love me, West Virginia. I get nothing done.
Right.
And it's hard to know who he's speaking to.
Well, this is the thing. Like, we saw a poll, I don't know if I mentioned this, that was out of West Virginia by people who were supporting the $15 minimum wage. So maybe they're a bit biased. But they had 62% of West Virginians supporting the $15 minimum wage. As I mentioned before, Arizona already has a $12 minimum wage, and it's going higher. It's actually adjusted to inflation. And there's another senator from Arizona, Mark Kelly, elected in 2020, who voted for it. So I'm having a hard time constructing a idea that makes any sense politically or electorally. There is no justification for the position. And as you rightly point out, like in West Virginia, if you were running, you might not emphasize Black Lives Matter. And every single candidate needs to emphasize the issues that they care about or are relevant, more relevant or less relevant in the area they're in. But you can do that in West Virginia. An economic populism is what's popular. They may be more socially conservative there, and I think there is evidence to prove that. But on economic, especially things like labor rights, things like the minimum wage, the evidence is overwhelming that they're to the left. And when we saw those losses from minority voters in 2020, the most concerning part, the Dems won the Senate, the Dems kept the House, and they won the White House. That's great, right? But there were a lot of flashing red warning signs all over the country with Black men and Hispanic voters. And why did they start voting at a higher rate for Trump than they did for someone like Mitt Romney? It wasn't because Donald Trump was more to the right on economics. It's because they saw him making pocketbook issues part of his campaign. Whether you like it or not, something like ending lockdowns for a lot of people who have lost their jobs feels like a pocketbook issue. If you're struggling to survive.
Even though he's like, yes, he is sacrificing working people to the gods of the market. Literally, many have died. And even though he was full of BS, like I will say, like Biden coming out in support of the PRO Act, in support, like sort of not explicitly, but essentially in support of the Amazon workers in Bessemer, Alabama, like encouraging them to unionize and basically saying corporations can't, threaten their employees for trying to form a union. That's huge. And that's like real. But the problem is that can they actually win the narrative? Like, and which is why Bernie does such a good job, because the man is angry, and the man, he's not afraid to actually, and AOC, not afraid to name it, not afraid to like frame this in terms of justice, in terms of someone wronging someone else, in terms of being antagonistic towards the very corporations and the millionaires and billionaires, which is actually what we need. We need that antagonism, and it actually fires people the F up.
Yes.
So I don't know if I can swear. That's why I keep on saying F. I don't usually say that.
You're free to swear on Twitch all you want. But let me just say, like, one of the things that's really interesting to me about about Bernie Sanders, AOC, and exactly what you're saying, and even Donald Trump, is that they have that kind of expressed anger. So you talked about being an activist. You know, I've been an activist for a long time. When you go out into communities and you talk to your neighbors and you talk to people that are in desperate situations, you get two reactions. You get some despair and you get some anger. Mm-hmm. And for me, anger is not a negative emotion necessarily. Sometimes it can be, but it's a emotion of action. It's an emotion of aggression. It's an emotion of change. If you're angry about something, you want things to change.
Yeah.
And there's something about and I think this has to do with class. It has to do with how well you're doing. For a lot of these middle class, college educated, especially white professionals, they might have empathy for the poor, but they have something to lose. And they get uncomfortable when somebody is talking in an angry way, you know? What are you so angry about? You know, they're living a solid life. Yes, it's terrible. They're putting kids in cages, but you don't want to ruin the good thing I have going.
Well, I mean, interestingly, you've got Fox News pundits and others, I won't name names, who also weaponize that anger. No, but you know, anger can also be used as like a cover for people who are like Tucker Carlson or like Sean Hannity, who are pretending to be working class or pretending that they care about working class people, but they actually don't. But I think you're right that the Beltway, nonprofit speak, and I would also venture to say in spaces I've been in, a lot of white feminism, which tends to be white, more privileged feminism, that has like an aversion to specifically Black anger, is something that needs to be undone and interrogated for what it is, which is very much a certain amount of tone policing, for respectability politics. And I think that in some spheres that's important. You know, if you are actually trying to pass legislation, I don't think, you know, like we've seen like people like Katie Porter push the boundaries, which I love. But you can't just completely go in guns blazing, and you can't go in guns blazing to meetings if you're actually trying to form a coalition and actually get something done. But you're right. There's something really important about righteous anger, and directing it. And tapping into it. Yeah, I forgot where we started. But yes, $15 an hour.
We're just yeah. We're I don't know how much more time you have. We're vamping. We're vamping. We got through the stories that I wanted to talk about. But one of the things that I think is most important to me and my viewers, you talked about the lack of kind of a feeling between the upper class professional organizer. I don't know if that's even really the phrase I want to use. Professional nonprofit people.
Yeah.
And, you know, talking about something like intersectionality, right? It's intersectionality, but when you start talking about class issues, then everybody gets up in arms and says, you know, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about that. Another representation of that I just saw was yesterday, I think it was, or this week, Joe Biden appointing 2 female generals that were apparently not promoted under Trump because the Pentagon was worried about like what his reaction would be to, you know, some promotion of female generals. And like, I don't know about you, but that doesn't do anything for me.
No.
The United States military, at the same time he's doing that, he's sending them out there to do drone strike. You know, he's sending people out there to interfere and prolong our commitment to Afghanistan. You know, in Kabul, we have, you know, the Taliban circling major cities, the U.S. poised for another defeat after a 20-year war. Pretty embarrassing.
Sorry.
Sorry for me rambling. Go ahead, jump in.
No. I think look, as someone who does not believe in the amount of militarism and in perhaps some future world, the idea of a military at all, absolutely having the promotion of female generals doesn't really do something for me so long as we're within a system of U.S. imperialism. That being said, you know, there's a comedian named Kate Willett. She's great. She's got a good podcast called Reply Guys. She talks about like something called the glass gutter too. Like there's a glass ceiling, but a glass gutter. Like women are sort of like, you can never reach a certain level, but you also are like expected to be better. And like, basically like women have the right to be just as shitty as men inside a militaristic capitalistic society. I'm sorry. Like there is and so if that's what representation means, that's what it is. I don't understand what it is. I don't think I could complete basic training, but my God, do I think that it is important that someone get their due raise and if they deserve it. Absolutely. So I think assigning, trying to sort of pass moral judgment because no, we're trying to end US imperialism is a little bit of a false premise and like borders a little anti-feminist if you're going to completely tear that down. So just keep eye on the prize in terms of where we ultimately want to go with the US military, but also understand that when someone isn't given a promotion because of
absolutely agree with you on that.
That's critical. We can't ignore that stuff.
I think I agree with you on that. But I will say that one of the things that, it's a embarrassing cliche meme at this point, but, putting people, in the same position to commit the same atrocities against the rest of the world without addressing them. That is what has gotten us into this position. In large part, I think Trump was successful in his like anti-war posturing. He was able to get to the left of Hillary Clinton, as an example, on stuff like the Iraq
War. So was Obama.
War.
So Obama was anti-war, but he just expanded the drone war and he ended the war in Iraq, right? Mm-hmm. But anyway, I'm like, Trump was anti-war in name only. He increased drone strikes by something like 400%, right? Mm-hmm. Like now Biden is actually going to do a review, something that Obama didn't do. He said he did, but he didn't actually do a full review of drone strikes. He started counting them, which was like, good, Obama. Thanks for counting them. But Biden's actually going to do a review of like the use of the drone program, which I think, again, we need to keep up the pressure on that. I guess I'm not, look, my brand of feminism is radical feminism, which means it is anti-capitalist, it's anti-exploitation, it's anti-oppression, it's intersectionality, right? It's anti-racist. I think that's really critical. So do I think that it is a win for feminism to have women promoted in the military? Not really, no. I don't believe in like, yay, cute boss bitch in the army. No. But do I think it's important to have representation within such a finite space that I have a lot of critique of? Yeah. So I sort of separate those two things. In my mind.
I think there is a lot to be said with that, and a lot to agree with. All right, well, Francesca, thank you so much for coming on and just vamping with me. Sorry for the technical difficulties in the beginning.
That's okay. I like how you kick me off just when it gets good.
Yeah. Just as it gets good. But I have to run soon. I'm sure that you do too. Why don't you plug your stuff? I have my mod team throwing some links into the chat as well. Mod team.
And, follow me on all the things
tell
at
me what
Franny
you're doing
Fio.
next.
You can just follow me at Franny Fio. I have a Twitch live podcast, and you can listen to it or you can watch it live on Sundays at 6-9 Eastern, called The Bituation Room. We have comedians and experts and activists come on, and we vamp and talk and laugh, and it's great. So yeah, everything's at Franny Fio, FRANIFIO.
All right. Well, if you ever, everybody, please give a follow, and thank you all for hanging out with us. If you ever need me to swing by, let me know.
That'd be fun. Do you stream on Sundays?
I mean, I stream a lot, so yeah, but not at that time. Not at night.
I'm there a lot.
Yeah. I'm not. With COVID, I pretty much just stream almost every day, because why not? What else am I doing?
Of course, I'd love to have you come on.
Yeah,
swing by.
If it's in the evening, I'm usually free on Sunday.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, I'll see you. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Next time I'll do better with my camera. We do politics here every morning starting at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. You can watch us here on Twitch. We're the morning guy, the morning politics guy, Politics Frogs, in every single day, same time, 10 a.m., day in, day out. And we carry you through your morning and early afternoon politics needs. And if you need more, Mike from PA, we have a YouTube channel. We talked about suburbs, the My Pillow guy, Ted Cruz. We talked about DSA. Amazing. Making fun of Tim Pool. Amazing. Look at all of these amazing videos. Get in there, watch them. We have me on Twitter. You got to follow me on Twitter, chat. I'm at 20,614 subs. That means I got like 40 followers on Twitter in the last day. You can do better than that. You can do better than that. Go follow us on Twitter. And of course, join the Discord, where we have an incredible community of left-wing streamers. We have left-wing community. We talk about the stream. We talk about politics. There's gaming content. It's a really awesome supportive place, direct action, mutual aid, and you can just let off some steam. And also, you can help produce the show. One of the things I do is I look at the links that are put into the news content suggestions chat room on the Discord. Join the Discord, come hang out, and maybe what you want me to talk about will be part of the next show.